Good morning, sir.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. So let's get started without any further delay.
Good morning, sir.
Okay.
Good morning, sir.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. Let me get started. And I hope you can see my screen, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Against the rules, yeah.
This isn't forever.
You need some light in here.
It's just for now. There's the weight of the world on my shoulders. But I know somehow at the end of the day it'll ground me.
Do you miss your mum?
The earth under my feet.
Can you feel this? Can you feel this?
Lift my eyes up where I'm going. Keep your fire.
She needs a name.
Penguin.
Won't lose hope, 'cause I know.
The boys and I were struggling.
Oh, you're struggling.
Yes, it's all of us. You're still you, Sam.
No.
You are. You are.
Have anyone seen this movie, by the way? Type the name, if you know.
Where I'm going, keep the fire.
I'm here. I'm your mum. Same mum.
Okay, so this is one of the best movie I've seen at least this year. Have you seen this movie, anyone? It is based on a true story. Anyone?
Sir, what's the name?
Penguin Bloom. So it's a wonderful movie, and if you want, you can watch. So anyways, I mean, how it is anything related with the today's class or what we are going to do?
So helping the differently abled or helping people recover.
Okay, that's nice. But anyways, I mean, I just put this video because I like this movie, so it nothing to do with today's class. And I hope you liked it. Okay, so let's get started. So today we'll be talking about data analysis, data interpretation, and presentation. Because in the last class we discussed about data gathering, right? So once you gather the data, what are the things you can do? You can do analysis, you can interpret from whatever the data you have, and finally present to the user or probably present to the whatever the stakeholder you have, right? And how data analysis, interpretation, and presentation can help you? Anyone? Quick answer. It can make you basically it can basically help you in making a business decision. It can help you in improving the product and so on, right? It can also help you in determining.
Identify some shortcomings in our product, whatever the users don't like.
Okay, I just thought, I mean, who is basically running some commentary. Anyways, I mean, your background was like some match is happening. Anyways, that's fine. Yeah, so right answer, by the way. Yeah, so thanks. So today we are going to discuss about how you can analyze the data. So what are the different ways? So if in the last class, if you recall, we discussed about questionnaire, we discussed about interviews, observation studies, and all those we have. Once you have all those data, you can basically perform data analysis, interpretation, and presentation. And that basically enable you to interpret and present the findings in appropriate way, not only for developer, but also for the user, but also for all other stakeholders that you have. So Let's start with quantitative and qualitative analysis. I believe it's clear to you since you from the name itself it is clear. So quantitative data is more about once you have like numbers are represented in a kind of number, like for example, average, sum, and all those probably some statistics you're talking about. Qualitative data is more difficult to measure. It's not just a number. So in that case, for example, you have like paragraph, right? So in the paragraph, I will ask you, how many marks you want to give. So it's more about qualitative thing you're talking about. Similarly, quantitative, how many marks the person has achieved. So for example, that is only based on MCQ. It's very simple, right? Just match with the corresponding answer and you'll get it. So qualitative analysis more about numerical methods to ascertain size, magnitude, amount, and whatever all the numbers statistics you can think of. Qualitative analysis is more about express the nature of elements and its represent themes, patterns, stories, and all those, right? So when you are doing your project, you also need to think about what are the ways you can evaluate your project, be it like quantitatively, be it qualitatively, or both, and so on. So basic quantitative analysis you might have already aware of. So mean and median, mode, percentage, and all those numbers you can think of. You can present the pie chart and so. So using these numbers, I hope you can get at least the glimpse of whatever the whole data you have, what it is doing, what kind of errors it is making, and so on. So for example, in this case, you can see the user is making the number of errors. So like most users are making probably these many errors and so on. Similarly, in this case, social media uses like once in a day is like these many people's overall sample that you have. Similarly, more than once a day, and similarly you can see once in a week and so on. So majority of the user at least you can see is here once a day. So if you're building any product, so probably you can keep that in mind. So okay, so these are the people who are probably should be the mainly the target user if you want to build something for them. Similarly, what you can do for other based on the data analysis you can perform, because the data analysis can help you in determining what aspect you need to focus on. So for example, if you have social media uses where basically you're talking about social media people use on 99% on the mobile and only 1% on the laptop. So in that case, you are suppose building a website, you don't bother about making it run on the laptop, but probably definitely you should do, but as a first priority you can focus on probably the mobile user only first, right? So this is just one example. You can think of more such analysis and interpretation from that. So how question design and affects data analysis? So that's why you need to have very accurate or probably the very precise questions so that you can determine these quantitative analysis. So the question design definitely affects the analysis. So there are several type of question you can ask. One is the open question, one is the closed question. In case of closed question, so it means you have only list set of options through which you can answer. It's more like you cannot go beyond what option you have given. So in that case, since it is kind of fixed answer, some options are given, so definitely they can be analyzed quantitatively because you know what all the possible options are. In open questions, it is difficult to do so. So in that case, different questions can be analyzed separately. So like in this case, suppose you have one question, so like what is the UI? So in that case, I will ask you, okay, so write your answer in 100 words. So different people will write different answer, right? So it's more it need a different analysis altogether as compared to the close. So fixed list of alternative answer restrict what can be said in the finding. So that is the case in closed answer. So sometimes it is possible you to answer in the closed questions, sometimes it is not. In that case, you need to evaluate in the open question format. Is this clear? Any questions so far? Okay, sounds good. So basic quantitative analysis, so looking for critical incidents. For example, it helps to focus on some key events. So for example, you are keeping track of social media uses, and you might have seen suddenly, like yesterday or probably day before, I forgot when the match was. So when probably the cricket match was happening, so you can see a lot of on the Twitter discussion is about who is going to win, India versus England, and whatever, like who is going to hit, what is the winning probability. So you can say a lot of discussion is about cricket. right? Similarly, I mean, some election is happening. In that case, you can see, I mean, a lot of discussion is about, okay, so who is going to win in Bengal or probably in Assam and probably where. So based on the critical incident, you can focus on and probably you can determine who are the probably the people whom you should consider while doing so. So it can also help you in basically emerging the data dependent on the observation framework use and probably the inductive analysis. Similarly, you can use categorizing the data. So categorizing scheme pre-specified, and you can probably also perform deductive analysis. Can anybody tell me the difference between inductive and the deductive analysis? What do you think? What is inductive and deductive analysis? अरे भैया तनुज तुम तो यार क्विज के पीछे पड़ गए हो. Didn't you check the classroom?
Inductive is more in a like a broader way, and deductive is like something which is definite or like that.
Okay, nice try. So in a way, I mean, I try to summarize here. So basically, you can say in inductive. So in basically inductive, so we try to basically aim at developing at some theory. It's more about, you can think from, you're going towards the generalization, right? Specific to generalization. In deductive reasoning, basically what happens, or deductive analysis, so you know some predefined rules, predefined theories, right? And using the data that you have, you try to validate it whether they are correct or not. So like in this case, deductive reasoning aims at testing at existing theory. So for example, what is the Newton's second law? Anyone?
Rate of change of momentum is actually the force that is exerting on a body.
Okay.
So the rate of change of momentum of a body is directly proportional to the external force applied.
Okay. So, okay. So in that case, so it's a well-known theory, right? So here, basically, whatever the data that you have, using that, can you basically test whether it is the existing theory that you have is valid or not? So something that is you do in the deductive analysis. Inductive analysis, for example, so here, so for example, inductive analysis you can think of looking at all the data you have. You see, the people of age 20 to 25 are more probably vocal on the social media about something happening over the, say, cricket, movie, or possibly something. So using, if you have huge amount of such data on samples, and based on that, you can propose some theory, right? So that is more about the inductive analysis you can think of. So which analytic framework to use? So here, basically, a number of analytic framework are there that applicable on the different type of data, which have different focus, and they also have different expected outcome and what level of granularity you are willing to do the some analysis. So for example, if you have conversational analysis, so you have basically, yeah, Jatin.
So inductive is something like if that from the person we are collecting data, if we are actually turning him towards the concept, so that towards the concept we are actually we actually want to collect data about. Is it something like that?
So inductive, you can think more in terms of, so for example, you collect the data from a particular person, right? So if that particular person, you can basically do some, you can say the you derive some rule or something. So for example, whatever the data, specific person's data that you have, he take breakfast in the morning, he take lunch in the afternoon, take the dinner in the probably in the night, right? So this is one person data. Can you generalize it, right? So inductive analysis is more about, can you make it more generalized or probably propose a theory? So like in this case, for one person, you derive this rule. Okay, so this is the time when people do lunch, breakfast, and dinner. How about, or is it applicable to any kind of people? So that is something you are making toward generalizing this, right? So for example, when the apple fall down, so this is just an example. It's indicate that gravity, basically the Earth's gravity basically get the item towards the center, or probably the ground, right? So this is one specific example, and based on this specific example, he's given the gravitational law. Any object which is probably if you throw, it will come down, right? So that is based on the example of Apple. Now it has generalized to any kind of item. So that is something inductive reasoning and probably analysis you can think of.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Similarly, for the conversational analysis, you have basically recording of spoken conversation, right? This kind, because the conversation is about probably the two or more people. So in this case, you have the recording of that. So the focus is how conversations are conducted, right? So how conversations are conducted, whether good, bad, who is probably more dominant, who is less dominant, who are the person, if I have to choose for the post of something, whom I will choose between the, for example, many of you, I keep getting different requests. I am going for SSB, I'm going for that. I'm not able to probably take the classes, right? So in that case, can we build a system which basically just observe the discussion? Because as part of SSB, you might have GD, right? Group discussion. So based on the group discussion, after the first round, many people get eliminated, right? So in that case, what can be done? What can be done? So in that case, so you want to probably focus on how the conversation are conducted, who are the people are probably to the point, who are the people just creating noise, who are the people who are quiet, and accordingly you can basically do. So insight on how conversation are managed and how they progress, and a lot of things you can focus on. So on what basis you can do those analysis? So at the level of word level, or probably the finer, or probably the instance, pauses, inflection. So for example, you want to see while speaking something, one person is you can say the taking pauses, or probably doing mispronunciation, or probably the even using grammatical incorrect sentences, right? Using that, you can do some analysis. And same thing you can do for discourse, content, interpretation, grounded theory, and so on. So that you can focus on, we'll have a look in the chapter. So for example, this is the example of conversational analysis. So examine the semantics of conversation in the fine details. Like here you can say, here different family members are saying something and they want to say something to Alexa to do something. So for example, the person, I would like to play the beat the intro in a minute, right? Here the other person probably says, oh, no, oh no. And suddenly, after Alexa, beat the intro. Again, in that case, some person say yeah, and some person say no. And it means the conversation is happening between many people. In such cases, an extract of the conversation between family and Alexa. So Alexa may get confused as well. So sometimes, it depends on how Alexa is interpreting and who is probably more dominant, and accordingly you can do. So it's just an example of conversational analysis. Similarly, you can think of, so I've given the example of group discussion, right? Something you can also see who are the people who are participating, who are the people who are not participating. And based on that, you can generate the different analysis. So some quantitative analysis you can do, some qualitative analysis you can do. So what kind of quantitative analysis you can do in case of conversation analysis? Anyone? Suppose there is a group discussion is happening in the SSB. What kind of quantitative analysis you can perform? Anyone?
What is the tone of people when they ask Alexa to do some stuff?
Okay.
Because that will help them to know, program Alexa in such a way that it will come to know that it is told to her or not.
Okay. What are the other things you can think of? Anyone?
So when they are speaking, whether they are nervous, confident, where they are able to articulate themselves better or not.
These are difficult to quantify, right? For example, you say nervous. Can you quantify nervousness into the probably some? Can
Sir,
you?
by seeing shaking of legs and things like
Fidgeting.
Again, it is
hesitation.
Again, it is bit subjective, right? In a sense, how much shaking you will say it's a shaking.
Number of words spoken per minute.
Exactly.
If you are nervous, you speak more.
Number of words spoken. So it's a fix, right? It's a fixed thing you can think of. So for example, how many words the one person said. So this is quantitative analysis you can think of. And the other example many of you have given, it's more towards the qualitative analysis, right? So where we will say, I mean, how much, so because it's more, you can think of something you can get fixed or something. It's more towards the quantitative analysis. Something which is difficult to measure, it is more towards the qualitative analysis. For example, give an essay. So I will ask you, please write an essay on, say, election. Different people write in different way, different choice of word and so on. So qualitative analysis could be how many words the person has written. Qualitative analysis will be like how many marks you want to give based on what they have written and so on. Right? So I hope this makes sense to you. So discourse analysis, so it's more about a detailed discussion between the people. So focus on dialogue. So that is the meaning of what. So you here basically you focus more on the meaning of it. So like meaning of what is said, how the words convey its meaning and so on. So it is basically often considered in terms of language, what kind of word you are using, what kind of sentence you are making, does it make sense or not. So discourse analysis is useful when you're trying to identify the subtle meaning of conversation. So content analysis, basically it involves in classifying data into themes, in categories and so on. So when you say the content could be of anything. So it could be video, it could be audio, it could be text and so on. So for example, I've shown you one content in the beginning of the class, right? What kind of analysis you can make from that? Anyone? Penguin Bloom, right? What are the analysis you can derive from that particular video? Any guess, anyone?
Sir, a moral analysis could be that a ray of hope could come from anything. Like
Very
we can see, I mean, yeah, just like that.
Yeah, so I mean, you can also think, I mean, जब तक, I mean, कौन सा वो dialogue था यार? जब तक happy ending नहीं है, it's not a end of the picture. Right? What was the Om Shanti Om में क्या dialogue था वो? Anyone recall? No one? No one watch movie? Sorry, Sarthak, you want to say something? Class अभी बाकी है दोस्त, right? और picture अभी बाकी है दोस्त. Anyways, so you can do those content analysis. I mean, all those. It's more about, I mean, another content analysis could be, so for example, like whether, because that is the movie trailer, right? Whether the movie trailer is interesting or not. I mean, this is one simple classifier you can build, right? Another classifier you can build, like whether it is, what is the emotion that you are carrying? What are the emotion you are carrying as part of the video, right? So that is something you can also do as part of content analysis. Is there a lag? Anyone?
No, sir.
Okay, good. So interaction analysis, a way of investigate and understand the interaction between the people, and so this is something you can use basically during the basically the interviews, during the again the GDs that we're talking about. So inductive process you can use in order to collaborate. So you can extract basically the materials, classify them, remove them, whatever, something which is similarly instances of salient event are assembled and probably played one after another. So all those interaction analysis you can do and basically derive some useful knowledge from the given data that you have. So grounded theory is more about when we are saying about the deductive analysis, right? So you have some the theories around you, how you can basically use them. So here basically the aim is seek to develop theory from systematic analysis of the empirical data. So sorry, I think I put it wrong here. So here I mean the inductive analysis, where basically you have systematic analysis and empirical data. Based on that, can you develop some theory? So this is about that. So it has 3 levels of coding. One is the open, axial, and selective. So open is more about, can you identify different categories? So once you identify the different categories, axial is about flesh out and probably link to different subcategories. And that's how basically help you in further selecting the theoretical scheme or something, or probably building some theories from the whatever the category, subcategory, and the data that you have. So researchers are basically encouraged to draw own theoretical background from the informed analysis. So whatever the data you have, based on that, can you basically create your own theoretical background. So for example, often you see different kind of data around you, right? Often you see different kind of events around you. Based on those events, can you have you given any theory? Anyone? Again, it need not to be probably published or so, but can you think of any theory based on the different things around you? For example, let me narrow it down. For example, in daily life, you see probably the social media, and you see a lot of trends and probably the data around some event. So for example, we talk about election, right? So how about, given the election data that you see around on social media, can you build some theory on that? Anyone?
So what was the question exactly?
So question is, so for example, on social media, you see on the election, there is a lot of discussion is happening. So all these are kind of data that you have, you can perform different analysis and so on. So based on these kind of data, can you build some theory?
A pattern of any specific party, how they campaign and connect themselves to public. Any
So
specific pattern?
one simple thing could be, I mean, probably the party having the more followers, and probably the party who are probably trying to engage, able to engage more people positively, going to win the election.
So we get kind of opinion poll, which party is running ahead of.
Yeah, that is also something you can think of. Similarly, I mean, these kind of data basically also help the parties to basically fill the candidate accordingly. For example, that's why all the different parties do some, you can say the internal basically you can say the exit poll, not exit poll, probably some kind of survey they do in order to see whether the candidate in that particular area is going to win or lose. They only tickets to those people who likely to win, because everyone wants to win, right? And accordingly, they even sometimes they change the candidate, and they basically retain the candidate accordingly. So that is something. It's more about sometimes the theory are well established. Sometimes it is probably you have some hypothesis, you have some empirical, you can say the results to validate that or probably justify that, but sometimes it is not likely to happen, right? So accordingly, based on whatever the data analysis you do, you can probably perform some theory. So this is one example of open coding. So open coding is for example, a game name called Adventure Capitalist. In this case, you give some description, and accordingly they can perform different analysis based on like how many levels will be there, what is the progress rate will be there, and accordingly. So I skip this example, but if you want, you can check in the book. So this is the same open development. So here basically they try to basically have the open code. So kind of different teams are working. So based on that, they try to relate with the different concepts they have, whatever the different parts or different codes are there, and accordingly they can further narrow down to different categories, like be it like single source, multiplayer, micro gaming. So this is part of this paper. I don't want to go into detail because we are a bit behind in the course syllabus. So you can, if you want, you can go into do details of this. I skip this part. So it's a system-based framework. So understanding a whole socio-technical system requires analytic framework. So socio-technical is more about so you're talking about how the society basically that you have, and how using the technical system you are basically able to build some theory. So it's about the distributed cognition of teamwork, right? How basically you distribute different work among the basically the team that you have, and accordingly get the whole system completed. So for example, when you're building any system, it may have different parts, right? It may have different components, and they need to closely associated with each other. So using this framework, you are able to basically build a system that can help you in coordinating, and finally you can build an overall system. So there are some tools and probably that basically help you to support all those data analysis. So spreadsheet, Excel sheet is one of the best example, one of the simplest example. So have any one of you use Microsoft Excel sheet to draw, you can say, the graph or something? Anyone?
Yes, sir. A lot of times in school projects.
Very nice. So this is something you can think of. Similarly, statistical package like SAS and SPSS and so on. So these days, I mean, all these are also probably you are able to do by the Python programming. There is a lot of libraries which are there using that. So I believe all of you are comfortable with Python at the moment, right?
Yes, sir.
At least you might be learning, right? In case
Yes,
of programming. So I request you and probably suggest you do it well, because next 4 years is going to be heavily dependent on the how well you learn the programming, because the different courses require programming experience. And right now, I mean, these days everything is almost available in the whole framework you have, and using the Python language you can access them, right? So my suggestion would be, whatever you learn in this semester, give probably the more time, though you don't have summer vacation, long summer vacation, but before the next semester start, whatever the time you have, spend time on programming, spend time on you can see the competitive programming. You can try Kaggle, or even you can probably try using any simple generating different analysis from the data that you see around, right? So that is my suggestion. Do as much as programming before the next semester starts. Just do it for fun, just do it for learning, just do it for, I mean, anything. So this is one of the interpretation and the presentation. So for example, this is the whole data you have, and you want to see who's the probably sharing the most market share. So in this case, you can see the Facebook is 15%, messages are 11%, and all those. In this way, you can perform different. So this is something something similar. Can you do, for example, if I write a different answer to different question, right? So in this way, for example, there are 300 students who wrote something. What kind of analysis you can, and what kind of presentation you can do? So one thing could be like, what are the grades distribution? One of the thing you can say, so like for question number one, most of 100% people are correct. Probably question number two, only 20% people are correct, and so on. Similarly, you can, for a given probably the open-ended questions, like when you have only the text and so on, you can basically perform some interpretation or probably the presentation in terms of word cloud. Have you heard of something called word cloud? Anyone?
It basically denotes the distribution of how many times a word appears in a particular text.
So let me see some example, right? So this is something you can see. This is whole data you have, right? For example, so this word cloud is at least able to show that. So here, I mean, despite whatever the things you have, so most of the people is talking about probably say embarrassment, or probably the fear, and probably feeling family and so on. And probably the words like rater, and probably the command, sleeper, and probably sha, food, and probably getting less attention, right? So this basically can also help you in getting what attention the different things are. So similarly, yeah, similarly in this case you can see, similarly in this case you can see this is the uses of pattern uses, right? So for example, a busy user, a heavy user use the mobile mostly all time, but on average user, they mostly use for sometime in the morning, sometime probably in the afternoon, sometime probably after this break, and sometime in the evening, right? Yeah. Someone is asking question. Please go ahead.
Sir, I have a question in the previous slide, because you are continuously going. That's why I'm not breaking your flow. In the previous.
Here?
No, sir. In the previous. Yeah.
Which one?
So, what's the distributed cognition of teamwork?
So here, basically, what I mean to say that, so distributed cognition of teamwork. So suppose you want to build a whole system, right? A system framework we are talking about. So a system basically includes different components, right? So distributed cognition, if a teamwork in a means, so you divide the different component to different team members. In a way, you can say that is done by a team, right? So distributed cognition is more about how you are able to coordinate well among the different people, different team members you have, and get all the system done, right? So for example, suppose you are building you are basically building a movie, right? So some people is focused on probably video editing, some people's person is probably focusing on say lighting, some people is focused on something else. How you can basically build a whole system using the distributed cognition. So it's basically distributed among the different teams. Okay, is this clear to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so if not, then probably yeah, please have a look on the book chapter as well. If it is still not clear, then get back to me. So presenting finding, as I said, I mean, so this is something finding you can present, right? So here basically you focus on yeah, who probably, for example, what kind of user is busiest. Like in this case, based on analysis you can perform. Okay, so the person of is 25 is probably on average user, the person was 45 is heavy user. Again, it depends on many things, because probably this persons might be the job of using this, and different kind of interpretation is presenting based on the different kind of data that you have. So this is just one example to show. So summary is, so data analysis can be done depends on the data gathering that was done. Quantitative and qualitative data may be gathered from any of the three main data gathering approaches. Percentages, average, commonly are used in interaction design. Mean, median, mode, all these are different kind of average, and they can have basically very different answer to the same set of data. And basically they also give you the different insight of the data that you have. Analysis of the qualitative analysis may be inductive, because it is extracted from the data, and deductive is like pre-existing concept, that theories that you have, and accordingly you can use. Several analytic framework that focus on different levels of granularity and the different framework that we have shown. So this is about this. And next I want to quickly discuss about another part. So data at a scale, right? So when I see the data at a scale, what do you mean by this?
Showing data on some range,
okay,
analyzing it and presenting it on a scale of like 1 to 10 or something like that.
Okay, anyone else? So here scale, I mean the probably when I say the, for example, scalable system. So I am talking about scalability, and it means it's a huge data, right? So here the data at the scale, precisely I mean the probably the big data, how you're going to use them, and basically how you can derive the useful insight from that data. Yeah, Bhagesh.
So like when you said data at a scale, like you're talking about the implementation of what you infer from the data you collect from the users or from the masses. Like how can you use it in providing services or analyzing something for your product or using it for research, something like that.
No. So here I mean that suppose you already have the data. So for example, you already have a data from say 1 million user. Now how I'm going to basically derive different analysis from that. So it's, as you can see here, so provide an overview of some potential impact of data at scale, introduce some key methods to collect data at scale. So that is also about, for example, if you have 100 million user, right? How you're going to collect their data? Discuss how to make the data at scale meaningful, because if you have this huge amount of data, so one possibility you analyze all data. Another possibility, if you're not able to analyze all data, but for different reasons, because you may not have that much compute. In that case, what are the ways basically you can determine or probably derive some data at scale? Similarly, review the key methods for visualizing and exploring data at scale. So for example, if you have probably 1 million videos, how you're going to visualize, how you're going to explore data, and so finally introduce some design principle to make data at scale ethical. So just 1 second. Okay, so what is data scale? So data at a scale is also known as big data. So it describes number, images of people, places, things, conversation, video, recording, sensor data, and so on. So huge potential for solving problem, because many times what is the issue if you derive some probably insight or theory from a very small data? What issue could be there? Anyone?
So the data that you have collected might not represent the whole spectrum of people who the product is
Exactly.
target.
Exactly. So in that case, one issue could be happen that the data is biased. So for example, when I was giving the example of looking at 1% data, can you write a theory? Okay, so whole people take a lunch and breakfast, dinner at this particular time, because that may be biased, because probably there are some person who probably sleep in the night, but other person who probably awake whole night and sleep whole day, right? Probably especially in the college days, many people do so. So if we have good amount of data, representative amount of data, so in that case, it will be easier for us to basically do some generalization. So all the generalization often basically come from the scale rather than one specific instance. So that's why I'm saying we need to go from when we have to go from specification or probably one specialized example to the generalization. So it requires basically the perform or validate what you are getting, what analysis that you're deriving from the one specific samples. It should be valid on as many as examples that you're looking at, right? So that's why data at a scale is important. But sometimes, as I said, you may not have enough resources to process all those. In that case, just take a probably representative sample of whole data and process, and accordingly you can do. So but still you must know how to collect, analyze, and probably communicate findings. And it also involves basically the dangers to people's privacy. So for example, when we were talking about the example of social media, where basically you are analyzing who are the people supporting which party, so that basically also lead some privacy leakage, like so this particular person is supporting this particular party, and probably in that case your friend who probably start hating you, because so for example, if you like party A and because some example during the election we have seen, like so probably the couple basically have done the breakup, because probably one partner basically supporting party A, another partner supporting party B. They said, okay, so we have some conflict of ideas, we don't like each other now, and we want to do breakup, right? So something, just a very different example, but at least you can get an idea. There might be some privacy leak or something that we need to be careful when we are dealing the data at scale. What is the best way in order to deal with such data? Any guess? You can anonymize data. So that's why when we are often doing some data analysis, the most of the time people emphasis on how about basically we can anonymize the data, so that we don't know the identity who's saying what, but in general we will get an idea of what is happening over social media, right? So with this thing, I'm going to stop here. I will complete the rest of the talk in next class. I just wanted to give a probably very quick overview of what do you mean by data at scale, and that we'll discuss in the next class. And we'll be also having quiz in the next class, as I posted there, and I already basically I have already shared syllabus as well. I hope everything is clear there. So I hope is Anish here? Anish, are you here? So meanwhile, please let me know who will be sharing, doing presentation today. Which group?
So group 7_2.
So group
4_6.
Khusdev, should I make you the co-host?
No, sir. Karan will be co-host. He will be sharing the slides.
Which Karan? Karan Prasad, Karan Current Okay, so I made current 2 to whatever. As a co-host, please share your screen. Who is the next group? Please tell your name.
Shobit Verma.
Shobit, I made you co-host. You can go next.
Yes.
Who's the third group? Please tell your name.
So group 6_9.
Darsh?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Thus, I made you co-host. You can go as third group. So please get started.
Sir, can you make Maxim the co-host, sir? He's the one sharing.
In responding the
Okay, so I made Maximjit as a co-host as well. Thanks. Please go ahead.
Can you see my screen, sir?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello everyone. We group 7_2 are going to present you on the idea of smart glass today. Next slide, please. Smart glass are wearable computer glasses that interacts with you to make your life easier. Talking about earlier models, they were based on remote system technology, and they have to be connected wirelessly to a device via Wi-Fi or Bluetooth. Later new models are somewhat self-sustainable as they are able to run their own self-contained apps. Various new models are available. Next slide, please. Talking about double diamond design, first step is to identify the target user and to identify the activities and tasks of the user that has to be performed by smart glass, and how to interact with the user and how to help them. Third step, that is develop the product. Glasses are developed with the right kind of functionality according to the user needs. Many prototypes are made of smart glasses. Fourth step, to deliver the final smart glass to the target audience.
In that case, there is some confusion.
Yes, sir.
No, please carry on.
To deliver the final glass to the target audience and to know their users' experience and feedback. Over to Karan.
Yeah, am I audible? Hello.
Yes, you are audible.
Yes, you're audible. So one of the first, not exactly the first, but one of the most hyped smart glass products to come to the market was the Google Glass. But unfortunately, Google Glass failed. Why was that? A wrong assumption was made that people will accept and wear that Google Glass just due to its hype, and the designers clearly failed to define the advancements they were looking to make. They didn't have enough surveys, and the lack of consensus about how the product would be used resulted in the failure of the Google Glass. In other words, the product was was created based on untested solutions for a problem, and the target market was not exactly validated. What exactly a smart glass should do? First of all, a smart glass should not lose the functionality of a basic glass. That is, people who actually wear glasses should also get benefits from the smart glass. Smart glasses should be comfortable as they are a smart wearable. People would not want to wear something which is bulky. They should ease lives like all smart wearables. They should help the users become more productive rather than adding on to their hassles. And augmented reality. In my opinion, smart glasses might be one of the best products to implement the concept of augmented reality. So a design that we came up with included some cameras and depth sensors being installed into the smart glass so that it can learn and observe the world around it, make some depth maps. It should be simple. The design should be simple and should be sleek so that it's comfortable for people to wear, and people don't seem like they're wearing some kind of a weird technical device. And from the survey we conducted, people also told us that they would like to see variable tinted frames so that they can use one glass for all kinds of activities like normal glasses, sunglasses, etc. Yeah, over to Harsh.
Okay, am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay, so now I will explain some of the key features of these glasses. First being touch sensitive frame to recognize gestures. The glasses have a small touch panel on one of its temples, which allow user to navigate through their glasses, like swipe left and right to navigate what you view, swipe up and down for controlling volume, tapping once to play, pick up call, select, double tap to pause, decline calls, pressing for 5 seconds to deactivate smart features, tapping twice to switch voice assistant on and off. Audio, the second one being audio through bone conduction. This is a feature which allows a person to interact with others and with a device efficiently, and will be explained in the next slide clearly. Third being voice, no, it's still on the first slide. Voice assistant to help with various actions. The voice assistant, which can be activated with the touch panel, recognizes your voice and you can give simple commands to achieve basic actions like play, pause, etc. Camera and depth sensors help to map the world around them and recognize gesture. This allows easy mapping and also helps with augmented reality. Next slide, please. Uh, Although most sounds are transmitted through the air to our eardrums, bone conduction relies on sound being transmitted through vibration on the bones of the head and jaw. The sounds from these headphones bypass the eardrum and relays sound directly to the inner ear. So, how does this work? The device sends vibrations through the bone directly to the cochlea, bypassing the outer and middle ear, from where the signal goes directly to the brain. So, what are some of the benefits of bone conduction over normal audio inputs? First, they are more comfortable. Secondly, they are clean and hygienic as it does not go in our ear. And third, we are aware of outside world as we can hear external noises as well. Next slide, please. So image formation, the third technology we use is image formation using laser technology. The laser is responsible for forming images directly in the retina of the eye. Thus, the images can only be viewed by the user only and no one else, thus ensuring privacy. This idea was first introduced by Intel in their smart glasses, and it was a huge jump from projector used by Google glasses, as those projectors caused headaches and eye strains. Moreover, there were privacy issues also. Also, it has save drive feature, which allows all smart features, which locks all smart features while driving except GPS. So we can still wear it while driving and navigate the roads. Next slide, please. And I'd like to pass on the mic to my next.
Hello everyone. These are the two depictions of how the glasses will show navigation and messaging. In the first image, user will get real-time directions with arrows. This reduces the hassle to look on road and phone at the same time, and thus it's more simple and convenient. The second image is if user wants to see messages, then it will appear as shown in the image, like, and if the user wants to scroll through, the user can scroll with the eye gesture to read the full message. Next slide. This is a short video we prepared for our design. Touch sensors that has volume controls and other features. The laser technology as discussed in earlier slides. Camera and depth sensors for navigation, and this is the bone conduction sensor for audio output. Next slide. Yeah. For accessibility, no, this is my part. For accessibility and inclusiveness, the glasses have various transparency level like normal glass, sunglass, or if the user wants a special kind of variable tint, then they can opt for that one too. And also these features all can be controlled through the app with the glass brightness. And for the glasses have speech recognition and gesture recognition for controlling IoT devices and other things. The bone conduction technology helps the deaf people to use the glasses and receive the audio output. Next. Now I pass on to Mas.
Thank you, Projan. I'm going to discuss how our design focuses on the usability towards the user. First of all, it's safety. So the information is displayed with light intensities that are safe for users' eyes. And then utility as a usability goal. It is designed with most of the tools expected by users, hence creating functionality. We shall know how much tools are expected through our survey that we have already put out there. Memorability, our user interface is internally and externally consistent to make it easily memorizable for the users. And then learnability. Learnability is our design has been created with a help tool such that novel users can use it without having problems. And then effectiveness. They are light, they are portable, and then they are also wearable. They therefore effectively solve the problem of having to work with bulky computer systems, since now the computer system is wearable. Next slide. Next slide, please. So it will have an app which will help you to access it through your smartphone. And then this app, some of these features are that it will be used for customizing the look and feel of the glass. For example, what you want to see on your home screen. It will have links with other apps on the phone, and it integrates with plus like Maps and then Spotify and Workouts, such apps on your smartphone. Then it can be used to get familiar with the usage of Glass, and then it also helps to give feedbacks and report issues. So all these things make it act as a fail-safe for the smart glasses we shall have designed. So the app will be called Glassy. Next slide, please. We would like to thank our professor for giving us the wonderful opportunity to research on this and present this idea in front of our classmates. Thank you so much from all of us.
All right. Great job, guys. It was a pretty in-depth presentation, and you guys talked about some of the products that have already existed in the market and how you'll go around solving problems there. I missed the first few slides, so I can't comment on those, but otherwise it looks great. And yeah, before we move to the next presentation, till 12 p.m., does anybody else have any questions or any comments they want to give about the presentation that was just given? Anybody at all? If not, thank you guys. And
Is the
yeah,
UI,
wait.
actually presenting the augmented reality thing on the glass screen, right?
Not exactly on the glass screen as shown at the laser technology, image formation using laser technology. The images are formed inside the retina, so that the person standing across to your people around you cannot exactly see what you are looking at.
That means how it done. Like if I'm presenting a screen, there should be a if I'm presenting any image, there should be a screen for the presentation. So the smart glass actually we use right now, they use actually the presentation on the screen of the glasses.
Jatin, so that was the problem. Like many people had privacy issues. Like if someone texts you like some personal message and it is shown on the glass, someone could somehow read it. But in this, only the person wearing these glasses can see it because of this laser technology. So like you can't present, but these glasses are too small for presenting anyway, right? Like it is just for personal use. So the person can see, but others can't. I hope I've clarified.
Hello.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was muted the entire time that I was speaking, just for a minute. Oh no, what I was saying is, can the next group? Thank you guys for your presentation. I think we'll move on to the next group. Can somebody please tell me? Can the next group please tell me their members so I can make them co-hosts and they can share their presentation?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I am already a co-host.
Oh, okay, fine. Then that's great. Why don't you go ahead, share your presentation, and begin?
Next. About 3 seconds from the beginning of our presentation, let's see what has been done by humans for production of 39.8 tons of paper around the world. Use of 4.577 million liters of water. Use of 676.6 complete large trees. 0.6183 hectares of land used for deforestation. 102.9 gigajoule of energy used in India. 10.2 tons of CO2 produced in India. But what is the output of such type of 3 seconds? Junk mail eat up 0.095 portion of the tree. Average office worker wasted 0.0015 portion of the page. 0.0268 portion of the page wasted by schools in Alameda, USA. There is almost 20 kg of paper wasted by students around the globe. 0.032% of all printouts and photocopies went to rubbish bin. Finally, in total, 8.09 tons of paper wasted. Next.
So for replacing the paperwork or to switch on digital mode, we introduce our concept of Pluto book. Here we can see in the slide, we make.
Okay.
Hello.
Slide number 3 will come via screen. These above statistics are of the seconds, are of 3 seconds. But imagine what will they. Shobit, it's slide number 3. Yes, right, Paul. These above statistics are of 3 seconds, but imagine what they will be when it come to years. Next slide, Shobit. Next slide, Shobit. These Shobit, open slide number 4. Slide number 4. Yes, sorry audience. Technical issue. These above statistics are of 3 seconds, but imagine what they will be when it come to years. By seeing the problem mentioned above, we, Yash Vardhan Singh, Shobit Verma, Anirudh Sharma, Pale Samar, and myself, Abhit Rana, have decided to bring a change by switching to digital mode is there to replace the way how paper was used for education. Next slide. This will be done by replacing bag with Pluto book. Now over to Yash Vardhan Singh. Next slide.
Okay, so so for replacing the paper for or to switch digital mode on, we introduce the concept of Pluto book. Here we can see it's a device by which we bridge the gap between laptop and the tablet. Basically, Pluto book is a gadget which can be used as a book, as a laptop, or as a single screen. We can say the tablet. So here's the basic design of Pluto book. In first image, it's a single screen. We can switch it to dual screen by sliding upper screen on the other. So second image, we get a dual screen device. And finally, we can use it as a laptop by having a in-screen keyboard in one whole side of a device. So we know that basically we have only 4 activities to do as a student. We read, we write, we code, and we do internet surfing. In our device, student can do these activities very easily, these all activities with the natural feel. So as I said earlier, we have three modes in device. First is tablet mode. You can use it as internet surfing, or you can use it for a single screen app use, like Byju's, yeah, you can use YouTube, etc. And you can also write here using Pluto Pen over single screen. In second mode, we have double tab mode. You can use it as a book in which both sides will have one page and each to read, or you can write as you can use it as one side of with the page, and second side you can use rough work. And finally, the third mode, which is a laptop mode, in which you can do anything you do on a laptop. So it's fully functional laptop. Okay, now for Sobit.
Yeah, let's have a look on a Pluto book and see how it will change the Earth. So we can clearly see that in the on the one hand, the student need help to carry the heavy bag full of books and notebooks. But on the other side, the student only have to carry a single laptop bag instead of whole bag full of books, which is easier for the student. Yeah, so let's see about the reading feature. So what are the problems related to reading nowadays? We can see that the same edition of the books are printed multiple times with some small changes, which leads to paper wastage. The books which are not in good condition makes the reader hard to buy it. We have to make braille books for blind people. Some books are very costly, so not everyone can afford those books. Also, some students stop from highlighting in books just to avoid spoilage of book with a thought to rent their juniors. And books also requires a lot of space in libraries and homes, etc. So our Pluto book serves a solution for those problems. If we use Pluto book for reading feature, we don't face the previous problems. Even reading gets very easy. We can do reading in many ways on this device. In tablet mode, there are two options: single display and double display. While in other modes, there are also options available like in double tablet mode and laptop mode. We can also use digital pen for highlighting something while reading, and this device do not require a lot of space in our homes and libraries.
Some advantage of having these features are, by this there is no rule how to use paper for performing any task. It all depends on our mood. Most of the wastage occurs in designing and development, where there is a lot of imagination and creation that leads to lots of paper consumption. As we use the next page when something wrong goes in a previous sheet, or for rough use purposes, we use the next sheet that increase the page consumption, which would be cured using this device. Having a text recognition feature would lead to neat and tidy work. Next slide, please. The best part about the device is that it is customizable according to the user need, as it features multitasking screen, which where we can access various features, for example, reading and writing notes at the same time. It acts as a book and a notebook at the same time. It also features with the restricted surfing, which abandon the access to social networking sites and also allows the access to informative sites. Its laptop mode totally transforms the screen to in-display keyboard, which gives you an interface of a laptop according to the user requirement. For example, keyboard used for coding. A huge amount of money is required for making a person study, and other expenses like cost of books, notebooks, pen, and other stationery material lead to excessive expense that can be reduced by having all the features of these elements in one device. It also provides online teaching features which increase the reachability and accessibility of students. It performs the task of three devices, phone, tab, and laptop in one space. It innovates the teaching technique and studying technique at the same time. Thank you.
All right, guys. So interesting presentation. I see where you're trying to go with the idea. However, perhaps I'm just not able to see the difference between, well, basically having two tablets or like a tablet with a keyboard versus the Pluto book. Now I see that there's definitely potential for an idea like this if certain features were changed around, you looked at reading elements, etc. But do you understand where I'm coming from?
Yes, sir.
Shobit, you're done. Yeah. So what my question is like, where does your project sort of move beyond like your traditional tablet with a keyboard setup? Because yeah.
So it fulfilled the need where we have required two things at the same time, like books and notebooks at the same time, like marking screen and getting question paper and writing solution at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I guess we can move with that for now. Sure, but I think like your idea is great, but I think you guys need to spend a little bit more time on thinking on ways to do it, and especially look at the market and see that such products don't already exist. But good job. Okay, so one question from Sarthak before we move to the last presentation of the day. Why the name Pluto? Is there any specific reason? You guys want to take that and answer? Shobit, Thala, Anirudh, Yashvardhan, Abid. Why the name? Oh, okay. Cool. So in that case, sure, you guys can stop presenting your screen. Can we move to the last presentation of the day, which would be
Yep, I'm starting the presentation.
All right, great.
Just a second. I guess. Sorry, my man. Yeah. Darsh.
Yeah, okay. So hello everyone, and today me, Maxim, Sarthak, and Vijay will be presenting on Kitchen Assistant. So Maxim, next slide. Yeah. So before I jump onto the topic, let me just give an introduction on voice assistants. I guess all of us are already familiar with it. It is something that devices or softwares that perform certain tasks or services based on questions and commands given by you. And some popular voice assistants are Alexa, Google Assistant, Siri, Bixby, Cortana, and many more. And the voice assistants are becoming very essential and very effective day by day because they can do anything from answering your questions to controlling items in your homes and all the smart devices. And on the right hand side, you can see a bar graph, and you can see the number of voice assistants have been increasing every year. So next slide, please. Also, I'd like to talk about online grocery shopping. Now, this is something that is becoming very trending in India right now, as people, and especially in this lockdown, people have ordered a lot of groceries online, and there are many websites such as Big Basket, GeoMart, Grofers, etc. And as of 2019, Big Basket, the online grocery store, had the highest market share among online groceries in India at over 35%. And the market value of online groceries was about 100.7 billion Indian rupees that same year. Next slide. So the reason for talking about these two topics was that because this is what our project is based on. It focuses on simplifying the task of ordering groceries online and making your task very less time consuming. So you can just place an order through voice command, and not only does it place orders, but it also recognizes your daily needs and it suggests all the different recipes and helps you navigate through it. And all of this is done through voice control itself. So I'll hand over to Sarthak.
Thank you, Dash. So, as you know, in a layman's term, a product is just a food manager based on the concept of Internet of Things or IoT. So, like we can place orders from the comfort of our homes. We don't even need to go outside, and it's especially helpful in today's times. So, and we can get to know what's inside our refrigerator anytime and anywhere. It even has an inbuilt camera, including a photo review of the contents of the fridge. And there was a main issue of the security reasons, as nowadays smart fridges are getting hacked quite easily because due to lack of encryption and password protection. So we are providing specific encryption, and voice recognition can be enabled for further protection if you need any. Next slide, please. And the reason why we just thought of this idea was probably because, as triple ITD students, we almost have no time, and the problems faced by the physically challenged people, and like we just don't get any time, and even the physically challenged people cannot go out and shop, and during the lockdown situation of this COVID-19, it's better we don't go out. So we just thought, why not just automate everything just the way we automate programming. So yeah, it's just a process of automating the things and keeping a check what's inside the fridge and refueling the fridge when we need it. Next slide, please. And an average family throws out more than $2,200 of food annually. The United Department of Agriculture recently found that the average American consumer wastes 225 to 290 pounds of food per year, enough to feed 2 billion extra people annually. And you know what? The world's population is 7.8 billion. So it's like we can feed more than 25% of the people if we save that much food. And yeah, we do provide a system that we can note down the expiry date of the product so that we can notify the users. And if while you're excuse me, am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. While we are out shopping, we can also like get a view of the inside of the fridge, and we don't have to go back to our homes just to see, and prevent wastage of food by buying too much of food, even though when we are not sure if it's available or not. Next to my next participant. Thank you.
Okay, so I'll just talk about the functionality that our assistant will be able to provide. So it will be activated upon opening of the fridge doors. And for example, if we see that, for example, eggs or milk have finished inside the fridge, so we will just say a voice command that it needs to be added to the cart on a certain website. The range of websites that will be available will be based on the locality. For example, in India, we will be able to integrate with a certain amount of websites like Big Baskets or Grofers and Amazon Pantry, whatever the user has the preference for. And after that, we will also be able to make notes in the app of the things we want to write down. For example, if we prefer going to the physical stores and buying things, so we can just tell it to add a note to the note section inside the assistant app that will be available on the phones as well. And it can also set reminders on your phone, and it will be also done through an app that will be on the smartphone that we have, and it will be synced with the assistant. However, we will also be providing a certain plus version of the assistant, since our main goal is to sell the voice assistant at a cheaper price than its rivals, because otherwise it is something similar to Alexa or the Google Assistant. But if the user wishes, he can buy it at a higher price, and with that certain speakers come which can be attached to the fridge from the outside, and like using a magnet most probably. So if these speakers are there, then the user will be also able to play some songs or add a timer that can ring. So for example, when we are boiling eggs, we often need a timer for 10 minutes, for example, and we can tell the assistant to set this, and the speaker will just ring after 10 minutes. So, and with this, you can also pick up calls when cooking. For example, often a problem is that we have to hold our phone in one hand and with the other cook, and it kind of increases the difficulty of the cooking and does not ensure safety of the user. So we can also talk through the speakers, and obviously it will have an inbuilt microphone. And as I've already mentioned, that we'll be able to choose a preferred website, since Amazon Alexa has the same thing of adding to cart, but the main problem is you can add to the Amazon website only, and Amazon pantry is not as efficient right now in India as Big Basket, I would say. And so the main niche of ours will be integrating with these local websites that often work much better and much more efficiently than the international like Amazon in grocery market only. And it can also guide you through a wide range of recipes. For example, we can ask what do I need, what recipe for a certain dish, and it will tell you through these speakers that will be available. And it can also tell you certain things about the dishes, like the calorie input or how many protein is there per 100 grams, and like etc. So if let's discuss also about the usability goals of the device. It will be efficient in use. It will require minimum input from the user, since the commands will be um, enhanced using natural language processing as much as possible. And after like a certain time, maybe we'll be able to train the algorithms much better than the rivals of its. And we will make sure that the device can be kept inside the fridge at low temperatures for a long time. So that will be done through testing, and in case research is required, so that will also be done. And it won't be required that the user remembers any commands, since the algorithms will try to understand different versions of the same sentence, like the current assistants do, like Siri or the Alexa, etc. And also the user base is like, the main user base would be high housewives of all ages, that they may need this in their in their kitchens, or bachelors and students living alone, since as we know, like this is the age, this is the age group that is most likely to adapt to the technological advancements right now. So next is with and also the device design, like the overall, how would the device look. So it will look like an ordinary voice assistant that can be kept inside, that will be kept inside a fridge. It can run on rechargeable battery cells, since like this is the most probably the best alternative. And as previously mentioned, it will be able to resist low temperatures. So Vijay will go on.
Thank you, Maxim. Here you can see that it is our app and it is very easy to use and understand. It has many functions which is clearly seen, like add to cart, where you can add anything to cart. Reminders, where you can add alarm to set a reminder for something. Play song, where you can play song for refreshed mind. Sort notes, where you can make notes for item to buy. Tap to choose, where you can choose item and grocery store for buying your order. So this is the functions which is used in our app. Next slide, please. The why it is Maxim, it is मतलब अगली slide पीछे back slide.
Bro, it is the next slide. Oh, I got, like it hasn't got the title. I got it. Just a sec. Like you can go. It's just the why is it why.
Okay.
This is the
Why
slide.
it is, yes.
My bad.
Oh, no. Why it is viable? Yes, it has many points which is given below. Thus, voice assistant helps the user to save its time and easy to use. That's why user don't waste his or her time in ordering grocery items, and save time can be utilized in other aspects also. Voice assistant easily understand all the languages that help the user to access it very easily. The device helps the user to grocery reminders, let for shopping list reminders, let our user know they are about to run out of grocery by sending reminders. Next slide, please. Yeah, if more people will use the device, more worker will be needed to collect the ordered items and delivering it, thus creating more jobs and employment. So next, user place the order through the device, then it automatically selects the high rating grocery store for the items which you order. That's enhance the probability for user the items he ordered will be fresh and hygienic. Built-in recipe books provide a feature like when user selects a recipe, all the items needed to prepare it automatically gets added in their shopping list.
Yeah, its ability to track spending, give our users an ability to track their current spending through categorized charts on their favorite supermarket store. Next slide. Okay, this is the source is used in our presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Right. Thank you guys. So again, interesting concept, but I think there's one slight flaw in your pitch, and that's I think that you focused on the wrong detail. And rather than call it like, see, at the end of the day, you're saying that's like a voice assistant to help you with this stuff. But I think that considering everything you've talked about, including and how it's going to go around the fridge, more than a voice assistant, it actually goes beyond that, and it's basically something that can turn an everyday fridge into a smart fridge as well. Correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that sort of the idea around it as well? Because smart fridges also do the same thing, right? You say, okay, I want to
Yeah,
make
so
this
it's
recipe,
like,
I don't have.
yeah, it's like something, it can be similar because like maybe for example, the smart fridges, obviously they cost more than the normal fridges, and for example, I wouldn't change a fridge that I bought 3 years ago to a smart fridge, right? So we can
Exactly.
install this assistant